Hey, everybody. This is Dominic DeAngelo of WrestleZone.com, and this is episode 1 of WCW Rewritten. And it's going to be pretty much my degenerate brother Marcus's show here. He's going to take the reins and explain it, what his whole thing is here with World Championship Wrestling. I almost call it World Class Championship Wrestling. Marcus, hello again. And
hello again.
Thanks for allowing me to be on the show with you, I guess.
Yeah, well, Dominic, you're going to be playing kind of like the Ed McMahon to my Johnny Carson here.
So the Reba to your Britt Baker.
Well, there you go. That's a nice analogy. So in a nutshell, guys, I've given a lot of thought to WCW. As you can see, based on all the figures that are behind me, I am a major WCW fan. And looking back on it, it was, they did so many things really, really well. But then there were so many things that they did not do so well. They didn't capitalize on Bret Hart. The Sting thing could have been a lot bigger. The Crow Sting thing should have lasted longer before, he became like the red and black Sting. I mean, I could go on and on about balls that were dropped. And I love Eric Bischoff. I think that the man is a genius. But he keeps saying that, like, hey, I was handcuffed. Like these rules were coming down from corporate where I can't use blood, I can't use swearing, I can't use lewd gestures. And I see what he's saying, but at the same time, I'm still like, you can still make it work. Like, you've still got enough talent that if you just tell a good story, you don't need all that stuff. And I'm going to prove that by rewriting WCW, and this is the first ever episode of WCW Rewritten. And we're starting off with one hell of an event. It is Starrcade 1997. So look, before I get into it, I do want to lay out some ground rules. Dominic, I'll lay these out, and if you care to give an opinion or add any rules or think of anything that I did not think of, by all means, chime in.
All right, yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
All right, so the first rule is going to be that I will be using the benefit of hindsight. This podcast is for fun, and besides, it's pretty hard to rewrite WCW without using hindsight as a guide rail here. So I will be doing that. Factors such as injuries, rehab, etc., will not be taken into account. Scott Hall went into rehab in I believe it was early 1998, spring of 1998. Obviously, there were a slew of injuries throughout the year and the coming years. I'm not acknowledging them. We're acting like this is a perfect world. I'm rewriting history, so why can't I rewrite it the way that I want to? So that's the plan here. I will make efforts to only book talent who actually appeared on the date in question. So if it's a Nitro on a specific date, let's just say like July 25th or whatever, I'll look at who appeared on that Nitro legitimately, and I'll try to make it so that that's the case. But I may need to book somebody who didn't appear on that night to continue a storyline. Obviously it'll be a WCW talent, but I might have to say like, hey, I know that you were scheduled to only work 15 days a month, but we need you, so here's some extra money. Next, creative control does not exist in this world. Hogan does not have the option to scratch his Fu Manchu and say, that doesn't work for me, brother.
That ain't gonna fly, dude.
Yeah. He and everybody else in WCW are going to play ball, and they're going to roll with the punches. So whether they like the creative or not, tough shit. I don't care. So I'm not writing for or acknowledging the existence of Thunder Saturday Night or any other program aside from Nitro and WCW pay-per-views. So I know that there was a lot of other content. I know some major storylines happened on Thunder and the other programs. I'm pretending that didn't happen. As far as this podcast is concerned, it's WCW Nitro and pay-per-views. And by the way, just because there's a pay-per-view and a Nitro in the same week doesn't mean that you and I are recording the podcast twice in 1 week. It's going to be like once a week, and it'll be pay-per-view, Nitro, and then probably 3 Nitros in a row, and then a pay-per-view or whatever the format was.
I was going to ask about that distinction.
Yes, not doing that. Okay, so the final rule that I've got here is that I will only bring in new talent if I know that they were legitimately available at the time. So Stone Cold and The Rock will not be doing any run-ins. It's only going to be talent that was working the indies and or had their contract with another company expire. that will ever be appearing on these shows. So, I mean, there were, if you go back and take a look at some of the people who were working in the indies back in the day, there were some people with some very real name brand equity out there, who could have been nabbed up by either company and weren't. So those people may well be appearing. Stay tuned.
Which is surprising because you think about that. You look at the three companies that were there, like the primary companies, WCW, ECW, and WWE. I mean, it's crazy to think that, like we talked about this earlier, was like Tully Blanchard just wrestling on the indies or something at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tully Blanchard was on the indies. You could go on and on with some of the incredible talent that was out there at the time. So, be watching because some of these people might be doing the occasional run-in. Some of them might get signed to long-term contracts. So we're about to have a really good time with this. Go ahead, Dom.
No, you might be saying what I was going to say next, but go ahead. Let's see what you're going to say.
No, I was just going to say, without further ado, let's get into.
Oh, well, okay, then.
Go ahead.
Marcus, you did want to make one distinction, too, about one particular wrestler, right?
Yes. So that was going to come later, but I will get it out of the way right now. Obviously, Chris Benoit was an incredible talent. Unbelievable in the ring. Great look. I could go on and on about his contributions as a professional, as a human being.
One of my favorites, too, before all that happened.
Yep. Mine too. He was so fun to watch, and he was so very intense to watch. That being said, he committed some heinous acts, and I personally do not feel comfortable when it comes to booking Chris Benoit on this. So he was already scheduled to appear at Starrcade 1997. So, by the way, I'll make that a preface as well. The card was booked for Starrcade 1997. And if I am following my own rules here, which is me picking up at Starrcade 1997, the card was set. So I'm not resetting the card. I'm gonna use the card that they were given, but then starting next week when we record, it's gonna be a brand new Monday Nitro, and it's completely in my hands following that week. But so as of right now, I'm still kind of playing by Bischoff's or Kevin Sullivan's or whoever was booking's rules. And we're going to have the same card, which means that Chris Benoit is going to be facing Perry Saturn on this card. And that's fine, but this will be the final match that Chris Benoit has in WCW in my world. So as far as I'm concerned, this is it for Chris Benoit. I'm sorry if that offends anybody. I'm sorry if anybody was really looking forward to seeing what Chris Benoit could have been or would have been in WCW. But I personally do not feel comfortable booking somebody who committed a double murder.
You know what? Like you said to off air to me, was like, this podcast is supposed to be fun. And so, like, if you have that kind of hanging over the whole aspect of things, I think it does take away the element of what we're trying to get across here in this.
Exactly. Could you make the argument that Chris Benoit should have had the big gold belt? And he did, by the way, by the time that he left WCW. Absolutely. And if I had him here, my hands would kind of be tied. Eventually, I'd have to put the damn strap on Chris Benoit because he was that talented. And I'm not going to do that. So that's going to be the final rule. Obviously, go ahead, Dom.
Let me ask this as far as. Now, I don't think we ran into anything during this WCW, but wrestler deaths. What happens when you come across that? If we do come across that at all?
So let's use Owen Hart as an example. Let's pretend that Owen Hart was in WCW at this time. On the date of his death, and that's a good question. Whenever somebody died in real life, I'm going to consider that their actual date of death in this. So like, I can't remember what year Bam Bam Bigelow passed away, for example.
I think it was down the road.
I want to say it was like 2003, but let's say you and I do this for a few years and we get to 2003 and Bam Bam Bigelow is still a contributing member in WCW. Unfortunately, I'm going to honor his memory by not disrespecting it and saying like, hey, your death didn't happen. So yeah, that's a good question, Dominic. If somebody passes away in real life, I am considering them having passed away in my storyline world here.
Okay.
On that same date.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions before we hammer on Dominic?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that stands out. Maybe we'll just if there comes a certain thing that we find like a little speed bump in the road or something, we'll address it
Yep.
Go from there kind of deal.
Yeah, and by the way, these rules are pretty fluid. So if you're listening to this and you feel that I need to add a rule, if you have a good reason for me to get rid of a rule, go ahead and write in, talk to us on Twitter. Dominic's at Dominic DeAngelo, and I'm at Marcus P DeAngelo. So feel free to give us a follow and DM me, and we can have a reasonable chat about it for sure. But okay, I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of interaction with the show, guys, because I know that there's a lot of WCW fans out there, and I'm open to suggestions. So if you think that I'm screwed up, tell me so. If you love what I'm doing, tell me so. If you want to see something happen, tell me so. I'm interested. So without any further ado, Dominic, let's get into Starrcade 1997. You ready?
I'm ready. So, yeah, how are you setting this up? Are you going through the card original how it was? What's your plan?
I'm just gonna dive right into the program, and we'll go from there. So stay tuned. You'll see how my presentation works here.
Very well.
All right. So Dominic, the show opens with that cheesy '90s WCW video style package, right? You got Sting, and he's been hiding in the shadows, but tonight he seeks the ruin of one man, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So, I mean, I think that we can all imagine that video package, right? Or some similar video package. You've got crows flying and dark music, and it's exciting. I mean, how exciting was that period of time, Dominic?
It's like there's nothing I was more excited for at that point in time than as a kid, getting to know the unknown of the NWO and like what the mysteriousness of Sting and all that stuff.
Sting hasn't wrestled for over a year at this point. And this is it. This is what we've been building toward for a year with one of the biggest superstars in WCW. Here he comes, and he's got a title match against the biggest heel and probably arguably the biggest wrestler in the history of the business tonight.
Yeah.
All right. So creatively, I'm handcuffed here, as I mentioned. The card is oh my god, my cat going nuts. The card has already been set, and because this podcast picks up at this specific event, I intend to go by the advertised card. So that being said, I think that some big improvements can be made here. Hang on, I'm going to settle my cat down.
All right, you're fine. Go ahead.
All right, so everybody's uncle, Tony Schiavone, opens up the show alongside Mike Tenay and Dusty Rhodes. Tony says it's the greatest night in the history of our grand sport. And, Dominic, I think this time he's going to be right because I'm going to do this thing the right way.
Ooh.
Dominic, the opening match was a banger of a match. It's Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. Kind of hard to change much when it comes to this incredible opening match. It's two of the best workers in the company. They're putting on like a master's class, a clinic of the sort of match that should be mandatory viewing in all wrestling schools. Like these guys were both at the top of their game at this point. They both knew each other really well. I'm not going to change anything. Guerrero gets the win, and he retains a cruiserweight title. I will say this: I've got some really big plans for Eddie coming up. I recognize him, obviously, via hindsight to a degree. I recognize him as a major budding star, and he's going to be treated as such in this version of WCW.
Nice. Who was the babyface? Who was the heel in this?
Eddie was the heel, and Dean Malenko was a babyface, at least of sorts.
Okay.
All right. So next out, and this actually happened. Scott Hall comes out in street clothes, and he takes a survey. And he says that the NWO is going to prove to everybody tonight that they're the dominant force in pro wrestling. He says, with that being said, though, that when Hollywood ends Sting's career later tonight, he still plans to cash in his #1 contendership, which he earned at World War III. So we all remember Scott Hall won World War III 1997. It was kind of a strange choice at the time, in my opinion. Scott Hall, member of the NWO at the time, Hogan's the world champion. It's like, what are we doing here? It's cool. And again, how compelling is that? It's no matter who wins, Scott Hall's getting a shot.
It's true. And you know what? Like, let me tell the listeners here, Scott Hall's my favorite wrestler, and he's the reason that I became like a pretty big wrestling fan. So like him knowing he had a title shot, ultimately when it came down to it later on in '98, was a big deal for me. So.
And, he's one of those guys that everybody always brings up, like he should have won the world championship. Why didn't Scott Hall ever have a world title in a major promotion?
Yeah.
He didn't. And if what Scott Hall himself says is correct, his future title shot here is one of only two that he got in his entire career. So he's had two world title matches, one against Bret Hart and one against Sting.
Yep. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so Scott goes on to announce that Kevin Nash won't be there tonight to embarrass that big goof, the Giant. And legitimately, Kevin Nash did miss Starrcade 1997. He was scheduled to face the Giant. According to Meltzer, Bischoff, and Nash himself, he was concerned that he was suffering a heart attack and he was forced to miss the event. Nash, as it turned out, was okay, of course, but his concern was legitimate. His father passed away at a young age due to a heart attack. According to Eric Bischoff, Nash was feeling some chest pains. He went to the hospital. They took his blood, and the thing is that Nash, he went and had a very serious workout at the gym beforehand. And apparently, when your muscles break down only to rebuild themselves, they give off the same, I don't know what it is, enzyme or whatever that they give off when you're having a heart attack. So they took his blood and they're like, this guy had a heart attack. But as it turns out, it was simply due to him having lifted weights beforehand.
Oh.
Yeah. So
something to do with lactic acid or something like that?
It's probably something like that. I feel like Bischoff said the word enzymes whenever I was listening to 83 Weeks version of Starrcade 1997, which I recommend everybody listening to this go and listen to. So I want to say that he said the word enzymes, but whatever the case is, it was misleading, and Kevin Nash was not in fact having a heart attack. He was just paranoid about it, as anybody would be. He's a very big man, and his father passed away young from a heart attack, so he was unable to attend the event. He was in Phoenix that night.
I remember, this is an aside, brief aside, but Terry Funk's father died of a heart attack too, and I remember Terry Funk in his book saying like how worried he was about getting a heart attack and how much that got into his head.
Heart disease is hereditary, and these are guys that are very hard on their bodies and hard on their hearts. A lot of these guys were taking somas, which is a muscle relaxer. Your heart is a muscle, and in some cases they relax that muscle to the point where they died.
Yeah.
So yeah, a legitimate reason to be concerned there for Big Sexy. But in any case, Hall goes on to say that he didn't bring his gear, but he doesn't care. If the Giant is man enough, Hall's going to give him the beatdown in Nash's honor. So that brings out the Giant. He comes down to the ring, and the match is underway. Hall gets in some early offense after thumbing the Giant's eye, but the big man quickly regains the upper hand. He goozles Scott, and this is something that actually happened. He goozles Scott, but then he changes his mind and power bombs the bad guy for the win. But so I'm saying that this actually happened. The goozle spot happened and the power bomb happened, but they didn't have a match. So you've got Scott Hall there. You got the Giant there. Scott Hall doesn't have a match. I was like, why didn't they just have a match between the two of them? Yeah. Have Scott Hall come in Nash's place. So I'm doing that in this case. While Hall is laid out in the ring, the Giant grabs the mic and he gives his famous promo about being a patient man. He knows that he'll get his hands on Nash sooner rather than later. The Giant leaves, and Hall does his classic thing that he says that he is willing to do, and he lays in the ring forever before stumbling to the back in a daze.
You need to clarify this for me. Is this legit what happened, or is this how you changed it?
No, that's what I've changed it to. So
you have to. Okay, I think for this purpose, you need to make that distinction.
Yes. Well, so what actually happened was it was not a match. The Giant powerbombed Hall. I think Hall probably did legitimately lay there forever, and the Giant gave a promo. But in this case, he gets a pinfall against Scott Hall in a match, and then he gives his promo about how he's a patient man. And he's willing to wait to get his hands on Kevin Nash.
Okay, so I think going forward, you need to tell what happened actually, and then give your spin to it.
I'm going to do that for this event just because we're starting off with a card that was already booked. But in the future, I don't know that necessarily I'm going to say what actually happened, especially because I'm going to be changing the card probably wildly in some cases.
Well, that's fine. But I feel like for people to get a basis of what each episode happened on each episode, I think it's important that they knew what happened and then how you changed it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's fair. It just makes more sense to me to have a match here. As I said, why not? Both guys are there. Neither the one of them is actually booked for a match, so let's just have a match. And not to mention, I think we can safely shorten a couple matches that are coming up. I'm thinking specifically about Lex Luger versus Buff Bagwell and Goldberg versus Mongo.
Okay.
But also it helps to build an angle that I'm working toward.
Okay.
All right, so the next scheduled match was supposed to be Conan, Scott Norton, and Vincent against the Steiner brothers and Ray Traylor. But what actually happened in real life was Conan was also not able to attend the event. His girlfriend had a premature birth issue, and so he was unable to come to the event. And what happened was Randy Savage filled in for him. And the NWO got a win against the Steiner brothers and Ray Traylor with Randy Savage hitting an elbow drop for the pinfall. So I'm changing that part of it. So Randy Savage is still going to fill in. Now, however, I'm having the Steiners and Traylor go over with Scott getting the pinfall on Vincent. I'm also having Scott begin to plant the seeds of his heel turn here. So as we all know, he famously became Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner, but he didn't start planting the seeds until later. But in this match, I'm having him start to in the same fashion that they turned him heel in real life. And that's by acting selfishly during the match, not wanting to tag in either of his partners. Like he wants to get the pinfall. Mm-hmm. And then getting the pinfall himself as the other members are distracted on the outside. He gets the pinfall against Vincent.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So next up, we hear a commotion inside. This did not happen, by the way. And next up, we hear commotion inside of Hogan's dressing room. The door opens to reveal him trashing the room while yelling at Bischoff, who's dressed in his karate gear in anticipation of his upcoming match, and trying hard to calm Hulk down. Hulk saying, "Where's Conan? Where's Nash?" He's shouting, "This is the biggest night of my career, and they're nowhere to be found. The only person I seem to be able to rely on is the Macho Man, brother." He stepped up with Norton, and Vincent dropped the ball. Bischoff continues to try to calm Hogan as we return to the ring.
Okay.
So next up, we've got Goldberg and Mongo. This was a pretty short match, but I'm going to shorten it even more. I want to say that the actual match itself was a little over 5 minutes, if I remember correctly.
A long time, long match.
Yeah, it's a long match for two guys that can't work. Goldberg at this point was greener than goose shit, and Mongo, he has the coordination of a newborn giraffe. So nobody needed to see that match at all. So yeah, I'm shortening it, and Goldberg, he's getting a spear in early and finishing off Mongo with a jackhammer.
Do you know offhand what Goldberg's record was at this point?
They weren't tracking it. I know that he was certainly undefeated. Something that they were doing was like Goldberg wanted to steal Mongo's Super Bowl ring, if I remember correctly.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so this match was like for possession of the ring. I don't know. I feel like it was something like that. It's been a couple of years since I actually watched the build up to this match, but it wasn't good. So we're
scrapping that part of it too, I'd imagine.
What's that?
You're scrapping that part of it.
Yeah. No, we're not doing that. Goldberg just gets him with a spear and a jackhammer, and we get the hell out of that angle.
That's all she wrote.
Mm-hmm. All right. So next up, we've got Benoit versus Saturn. So legitimately, Benoit was supposed to take on Raven at this event initially. But Levy, he had an inflamed pancreas, which caused him to lose 20 pounds. So if you're keeping score here, I mean, that's 3 advertised people on the card who were unable to make it.
Card subject to change.
It is what it is, man. This is a wrestling business. And so, yeah, I mean, Raven, he lost 20 pounds and he was in the gym at this point, I believe, trying to work out and get back into ring shape. So he couldn't do the match. So he was there. He was in attendance. And what actually happened and what I'm keeping here is that Raven comes out and he announces that his contract states that he can wrestle who he wants when he wants, and he will not wrestle tonight. And instead, Saturn is subbing in. Also, as it really happened, it's a Ravens rules match. So anything goes. It's basically an early hardcore match. So lots of interference from the flock, which is to be expected. It's a hardcore match, and all the flock members are there. So there's going to be a lot of interference from the flock until finally, just as it really happened, Raven gets a DDT on Benoit. So Raven did hit a DDT on Benoit before Saturn put his prone body in the rings of Saturn, and the ref calls the match. So I did write in here, again, this is it. That's the last you're going to see Benoit storyline as far as it's concerned here. He has been released from his contract following this match.
Okay.
All right, next up we've got Buff Bagwell versus Lex Luger, the match that nobody asked for. So I mean, I guess on paper it's like Luger looks like $1 million, Bagwell looks like $1 million. It's like, hey, we gotta get these guys together, but they can't work. So what really happened was that Bagwell went over in the match. But again, I'm building toward a storyline here where all the NWO members are having a shit night. So in this case, this match was actually 20 minutes. The actual match. Yeah, they got a 20-minute match.
20 minutes?
20 minutes.
Are you fucking kidding me?
A ridiculous period of time for these two talents. I love Lex Luger. I like Buff Bagwell, but it's way too much time.
That's a lot of time.
So I'm shortening this match to 5 minutes, which still feels like a lot.
That's still a long time.
Still a lot of time. So I'm shortening the match to 5 minutes, where Bagwell has the advantage for a large portion of the match. But when he goes for the Buff Blockbuster, Lex moves and he has to flat back on the mat. Lex picks him up for the torture rack, and Buff is eager to submit. So that's going to be the finish of that match.
Okay, for clarification, Luger actually won that match?
No, Luger did the job at the event, and Buff Bagwell went over.
Okay.
So not doing it in this case.
Okay.
All right. So next up, in actuality, it was DDP versus Curt Hennig, which I'm keeping, by the way. But before that, I'm adding a segment where JJ Dillon comes out and he announces that what's that?
The commissioner of WCW at the
Yes, the commissioner. He comes out and he announces that if any NWO member interferes in the main event, he's saying, hey, this night is too big. It's too important. Could be the most important night in WCW history. And so that being the case, the MO of NWO is to interfere in matches. So he's saying if any NWO member interferes in this main event, they will have their pay suspended for a year. They will not make any money for a year. So we're setting the stage here to have a nice clean match at the finish, which is honestly what it should have been. Kevin Nash famously always says, like, hey, if one of my buddies is getting attacked at the ring, why would I not hit the ring? Like, if this is a shoot, of course I'm going to hit the ring and help my friends. And so I'm like, okay, if we're applying that logic, then you should basically be interfering in every match. So let's give them a reason to not interfere.
Now, from this perspective, were NWO considered employees of WCW at this point, though? Like, did JJ Dillon have that ability to levy that kind of?
Well, as I recall, Dominic, I believe that JJ Dillon and Eric Bischoff were at odds because JJ Dillon was usurping Bischoff's authority.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the idea was that NWO are legitimate members of WCW at this point, because they've got Bischoff in their pocket.
Okay.
But now JJ Dillon is coming in usurping the authority.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
I understand. So next up, Dominic, we've got Eric Bischoff squaring off against Larry Zbyszko with Bret Hart as the special guest referee. So what actually happened was Bischoff had Scott Hall in his corner. And, Scott Hall, of course, there was like some screwing around. There's Bischoff. I think he had like a loaded shoe or something where he was like trying to kick Zbyszko with his loaded foot. And then like the thing went flying. It was just a debacle of a situation. But so in this case, Larry Zbyszko's Bret Hart comes down to the ring first, and then comes Larry Zbyszko, and Zbyszko's on his own. And here comes Bischoff, and Bischoff is by himself, but it's been advertised that Scott Hall is coming down to the ring with him, but Scott Hall got the shit beat out of him earlier tonight. So he's unable to attend. So Bischoff is like looking behind him at the curtain, like, what's going on? Where's Scott? And so like his advantage all of a sudden is gone. So he comes down to the ring, and I'm going to keep this one blessedly short for everybody. You know, Larry Zbyszko is a good worker in his day, but he's kind of getting up there in age, and Bischoff is certainly not a worker. Bischoff is going to cheat as much as he possibly can, but Bret Hart is going to keep him, you know, legal throughout the match. And finally, you know, Eric Bischoff is going to try to cheat. I think he's going to have some brass knucks that he pulls out, and he's putting on these knucks, but Bret Hart sees it, pulls the knucks away from Bischoff as Bischoff is protesting. He turns around and he gets hooked in Zbyszko's guillotine and taps out. And that's the end of the match.
Nice.
So
what actually happened?
What actually happened was that Zbyszko went over, but it was like some tomfoolery as a finish. I don't recall what it was, but in a nutshell, it was if Bischoff wins, then NWO it'll be NWO Monday Nitro, and Thunder would then go on to be the WCW program.
Okay.
But then if Zbyszko wins, and I'm holding with this, if Zbyszko wins, then it is then Zbyszko gets a shot at Scott Hall at Sold Out. So that's still a stipulation because it was a stipulation beforehand. So Zbyszko is won, and so now he's earned a shot at Scott Hall at Sold Out. So
Okay.
now we're gonna go to the announcers, you know, as they tend to do before big matches, where the announcers are building the match and they're saying, like, you know, it's all of these months, they've all led up to this. This is it. This is the moment. But then Tony Schiavone says, hey, there's something going on backstage. We got to get our cameras back there to see what's going on. And Bischoff is confronting Scott Hall, who's got an ice pack on his neck. And he looks like he's miserable. Scott Hall's beat up backstage, and Bischoff is just reading him the riot act, going off on him. And finally, Bischoff gives him a shove. And Scott Hall stands up, all 6'8" of him. He stands up and he looks down at Eric Bischoff and he cold cocks him.
Oh, he hits him.
Puts Eric Bischoff on his ass.
Wow. This is a development already.
Yeah, obviously none of that happened on the program.
Yeah.
But so that's something new that's happening here. So, all right, we're down to the ring, Dominic, and I don't need any notes for this, because this is it. And honestly, Dominic, this should have been simple. You know, in real life, what happened was that there was a screw around finish, and in a nutshell, it was supposed to be a super fast count by referee Nick Patrick, where Hogan pinned Sting, and it's a very, very fast count, like evidently cheating.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that, hey, Bret Hart just got screwed at the Montreal Screwjob. Bret Hart comes down in his official capacity as a referee that night, and he says, no, this is not happening here tonight. This is too important. He restarts the match, and then Sting beats Hogan. So that was sort of how it was laid out. But what actually happened was that whether he was told to do it by someone or not, Nick Patrick did a regular count. So Sting was legitimately beaten on the program, but then Bret Hart still came down and did his spot and said, no, you cheated. And everybody's like, no, we didn't. Restarted the match, and then Sting got the win in it, like, just the most ridiculous fashion ever. This match was such a layup, such an easy thing to do. And they just couldn't do it. Now, so in Eric Bischoff's defense, he, on his podcast, 83 Weeks with Conrad Thompson, give it a listen to the 1997 Starrcade episode. But on that episode, Eric Bischoff says, in a nutshell, I'm paraphrasing, but in a nutshell, Eric Bischoff said that when Sting came to the building that day, he just looked disheveled. He looked out of sorts. Eric Bischoff knew that maybe he was having some marital issues, some issues in his personal life. And also he was saying that Sting looked like he hadn't been lifting weights. Famously, also on the podcast, it's kind of like a huge punchline now. He said that Sting didn't have a tan. He was super pale. He wasn't tan. And so Conrad always gives him shit about it. He's like, well, he didn't come in with a fucking tan, so you didn't put him over. So So basically what Eric Bischoff equated to, again, I'm paraphrasing. And again, I love Eric Bischoff. I will always go to bat for him. I think the man is a genius. But basically what Bischoff said to Conrad Thompson was, Conrad, you've got a mortgage company. If you had one of your employees come in for the most important meeting of your company's history, and he, his shirt was untucked, he smelled like alcohol or whatever, not saying that Sting did, but if this guy came in and smelled like alcohol, shirt was untucked, hadn't shaved, looked like shit, like, would you let him sit in on that meeting? And so that's kind of what Bischoff had to say about it. Now, what I think actually happened was, sure, Sting was probably having some personal issues. Maybe he wasn't as beefy as he always was. Maybe he didn't have a goddamn tan, brother. But still,
Hogan tan, dude.
But still, you had enough equity in Sting here to justify a legitimate, fair win, and they didn't do it. Now, the rumor has prevailed that Hogan went to Nick Patrick before the match and said, "Hey, brother, let's slow down the count, brother."
The cadence, dude.
So, because Hogan, kind of famously wants to put himself over and get over on people once he gives up a win. So, I mean, that's the wrap on Hogan. I'm not calling Eric Bischoff a liar here by any means. I'm just saying I think that the situation was mishandled, no matter what angle you look at it from. So, with all that build up, Dominic, we're at my version of WCW 1997 Starrcade. The main event. And here's another weird thing that happened in actuality, Dominic, is that Sting walked out from the back. Now, it sounds like a small thing, but the thing is that Sting had been rappelling from the ceiling. He'd been coming out through the crowd for months, over a year at this point, where it's like he's not one of the boys anymore. He's his own separate entity. I don't know why this was a thing at this event where he came from the back, where it's like Hogan just came from the back. And now here comes Sting from the back. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So in this world now, Sting repels from the ceiling, as he should have. So Sting comes down from the ceiling for this main event. Here comes Hogan with the belt. Hogan doesn't have any of his cronies. He's all kinds of bluff right now, but you can kind of see that he's a little bit shaken as he's coming out here to the ring. He's facing Sting.
Yeah.
This phantom that's been haunting the arenas for all this time. So, I'm not going to obviously go piece by piece throughout the match, but, in a nutshell, it's your classic heel babyface matchup. The babyface comes out strong where he is whooping on the heel. The heel maybe cheats. And then all of a sudden the heel is just dogging him throughout the match. Heel's getting the advantage. Things are going really well for Hogan. Just when he thinks he's got him, and maybe he goes for the big boot. Sting ducks it, comes back, nails him with a clothesline. They're both laid out in the center of the ring for a little bit. Sting gets up. Hogan gets up at the same time, exchanging blows. We transition to a Stinger splash spot where he gets Hogan with a Stinger splash. Hogan does his famous stumble out from the turnbuckles and flatbacks in the center of the ring. Sting locks him into the Scorpion Deathlock, but he takes his sweet time doing it, where he's slowly putting it on. He's looking around at the crowd like, this is it. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for. Flips him over, locks it in, and Hogan gives up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dom.
No Bret Hart coming out?
No Bret Hart involvement whatsoever. It was unnecessary.
Okay.
Here's another thing that happened, Dominic. At the beginning of Starrcade 1997.
Let me interrupt, though, here. So Nick Patrick wasn't officially the crooked referee at this point, right?
Not anymore.
This is what... Did he have a reputation of being the crooked referee at this time?
He had been the crooked referee, yes, I think.
So how are you going to get out of that? What's your deal here?
Well, he was no longer considered a crooked referee at that point. It doesn't matter who the ref is in the match. It can be Nick Patrick. It could be. I don't know if Brian Hildebrand was around at this point. It doesn't matter who the ref is. It's irrelevant at this point because we're not working that angle anymore. I think that was part of what they were trying to do until it got botched. But then, regardless, they dropped it anyway. So even if they're trying to tell people, no, it was a slow count, even though it evidently wasn't, they never acknowledged it again. And Nick Patrick was never a heel referee again.
Yeah.
So it was pointless. The whole thing was just completely mishandled. It was like a last minute, like, I do this when you go out there. It doesn't matter who the referee is. He wasn't a heel. We're starting with a clean slate. So no Bret Hart. Let's even say it. Let's say it's Mickey James out there as the referee. Or whatever that dude's name was. Was it Mickey James?
Not Mickey James. Mickey, oh my God, what was his name?
Chubby guy.
Yeah, there was Mickey, what was it? That's gonna bug me.
That's going to bother me now, too.
There was Randy Anderson, too. Wasn't there Randy Anderson?
Okay, how about Randy Anderson, especially because he got fired by Bischoff earlier in the year in dramatic fashion.
Oh, okay.
So let's say it's Randy Anderson. He's the ref of the main event.
Mickey J. It was just Mickey J.
Mickey J. That's correct.
Yeah.
But so in any case, Dom, so legitimately at Starrcade 97, at the beginning of the event, they showed like a bunch of WCW talent at ringside where they were like, hey, this is a big event. We want to see Sting get the win. So like Booker T's at ringside. All these people are at ringside getting ready to watch this thing happen. In my world, that doesn't happen. But what does happen instead is Sting gets Hogan locked in. Hogan gives up. And then all of a sudden, you know, Sting stands up, the crowd's going nuts, and here come flooding out from the back all of the members of WCW. So you've got Booker T, you've got his buddy Lex, you've got, name it, all the WCW members who were not associated with the NWO. They come out. Sting goes up on the shoulders. You keep the camera out of his face so he doesn't say that stupid Mamacita line that he said. So keep him at a distance. Sting's on the shoulders. He's holding the belt, and that confetti's falling, black and white confetti. So and we get the final image that we all wanted and deserved from Starrcade 1997. Sting as the world champion, and what is the future of the NWO? Mm-hmm. That's what it should have been.
High voltage is in the ring too.
High voltage. Yeah, of course. They're out there. Glacier, he's out there holding them up. Sweet. Hugh Morris, even though he was a member of the Dungeon of Doom, apparently. I don't know if that's still a thing at this point. Probably not. So WCW is back. They're on top. And what's going on? What's going to happen with the NWO? This is what it should have been. Is the NWO just done? Scott Hall punched Eric Bischoff. What is going on?
It looks like it's over, Marcus. The NWO looks done.
Hey, tune in next week and you'll find out. That's the event, Dominic, and that's how you could have made, even with the flawed card, that's how you make that event work.
Okay, I like it.
So, do you have any comments? Anywhere where I screwed up? Any questions?
No, I think that pretty much. Yeah, I think how you set it up. I mean, pretty much this is a pretty like straightforward episode because you had the card already set, so. You just made the adjustments and certain things like that. So I think you created still some intrigue. There's some finality to it, which is good because it's the payoff of a big storyline. So
Dominic, I just realized I skipped a match.
Did you really?
So it won't take long, but before the Eric Bischoff and Larry Zbyszko match, we had our WCW United States Championship match.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Between Curt Hennig and Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier.
I mentioned it earlier. I didn't give the match, and that's because it's staying exactly the same. That was arguably the best match on the card.
Wow.
It was a really good match. So Curt Hennig comes down without Rick Rude, which is kind of odd for that period of time, but he did come down without Rick Rude. And DDP comes down. They have a great back and forth match. Curt he's bouncing all over the place. He's doing his classic like overselling, which is tremendous.
Curt's amazing.
You have to, like, if you haven't seen that match, go back and watch it and you will immediately understand why I'm like, nope, don't change a damn thing.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the match, DDP catches him with a diamond cutter and wins the United States Championship from him. So Curt came in as the champion. DDP's leaving as the champion, and he does his classic, one of my favorite things. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. He goes out through the crowd with that belt.
Yeah, People's Champ.
Yep, the People's Champ.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I skipped that up to this point, but yeah. So that was the match that was before the semi-main, which was Bischoff versus Zbyszko. All
right, nice, good shit. No, I think you were in a good position. I'm very intrigued to hear. Like, so Mark, I'm completely coming in blind to this, everybody. So like next week, it's all going to be a surprise to me and what happens. So,
yep, I haven't told Dominic any of my plans. And as it should be in pro wrestling, there's going to be a lot of slow builds. There's going to be angles that I work for multiple weeks, maybe even a couple months, depending on the angle. So it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Like let's not forget here that there were some matchups in WCW that we could have seen and never had the opportunity to. Bret Hart coming in. Just think of the talent that he never got to face off against in WCW. Bret Hart alone.
Build with, let alone.
Exactly. Exactly. And he was kind of permanently like this tweener. Like, is he a heel? Is he a baby face? He was sort of stuck in that limbo for his entire run.
Yeah.
It's like, you're paying this man allegedly something like $2 or $3 million a year. And you're going to misuse him. Not me.
Cool.
Yep. So, guys, it is, I can tell you this, obviously I don't have it all fully formed in my head, because we're talking about something like 52 weeks up until the next Starrcade here, but I've got a pretty good idea where I'm going, and it is a lot of fun.
Sweet. I think my plan too is I'll watch those Nitros. Like, now that I'll watch the Nitro after Starrcade and kind of get see what actually happened, and then kind of sound off on certain things too.
Yep. And just so you guys know, another thing I'm going to be using is kind of a guardrail is going to be Meltzer's report, his newsletter from that era, and also the podcast 83 Weeks with Bischoff and Thompson, which I've covered a few times here. So I'm going to be using those two as kind of my guide rail to keep me honest as I go. I'm going to do my best to be accurate and honest. I imagine I'm going to miss and drop the ball here and there. But that's why my DMs are open. Please feel free to call me out on my shit. And let's just have fun with this, guys. This is like, to me, I get excited as I'm writing it because I'm like, how cool would that have been? How sweet would it be to see that?
This is how you go to sleep at night, right, Mark?
That's how. So I have a hard time sleeping because I have like a very active mind. But one way that I put myself to sleep is by coming up with these storylines.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in.
Behind you.
What's that?
Did you sleep with any of your figures behind you hanging on your wall?
No, I've got a Kevin Nash Beanie Baby that I snuggle with, though.
Oh, that's cute.
It is nice. So that's gonna do it, guys, for the first episode of WCW Rewritten. Next week we are at the next Nitro, the Nitro following Starrcade 1997. So it's guys, it's about to get pretty fun.
Okay, tell them your Twitter again, just to...
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Marcus P. DeAngelo. And you can follow my slapdick brother of WrestleZone.com, Dominic DeAngelo, at Dominic DeAngelo.
Correct. That is correct. And follow WrestleZone on Twitter at WrestleZone.com.
Definitely do that. Also, check out our other podcast, which is Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitude, where we cover AEW Dynamite on a weekly basis. And yeah, man, I'll tell you what, WrestleZone, some fun content here.
Yeah, we got some good stuff cooking around here, man. So it's, as you get, just be on the look. And yeah, you'll get this episode. You'll get all our interviews. You'll get Two Dynamite Dudes with Attitude on there. If you follow WrestleZone, the podcast, just type in WrestleZone on your podcast feed of choice. We should pop up and subscribe to that. And all that content's on there for free. No Patreon, no nothing. So tune into it. And enjoy what we got going. This is going to be a fun series to do with you, brother.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good ride, and yeah, stay tuned, because like I said, guys, I can't emphasize this enough. Let me also say again, there was a lot of things that really went right with WCW in 1998. The Jericho heel turn, obviously Goldberg's entire run was, it was like destiny. It worked out perfectly. So a lot of things are going to remain the same, but a lot of the circumstances surrounding them are going to change.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's hang in there and enjoy. And please, if you feel compelled, go ahead and write in about it. Otherwise, I'm just gonna assume that everything I'm saying is perfect and you all love it.
You all love it. Hey, dude, I'm so super intrigued. Scott Hall punching Bischoff. What's happening next?
What's going on? Hogan's calling out particular members of the NWO. Man, we're about to have a good time.
We're out of time.
And we're desperately out of time. The tape machines are rolling.
All right. We'll see you guys next.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.